So, well, let's just get after it. Welcome to Talking Shop. We are not in our usual locale. We're in my office because we had a meeting today. Things going on. We'll be back at our normal spot next week.
But we got Luther joining us.
Yeah, and Mike's back.
Hi,
I think
Mike.
Mike's a regular now.
I think Mike's a regular.
Am I promoted to regular?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You've been a great addition,
Yeah.
so good to have you back. Today we are looking at Jesus walking on water, freaking the disciples out. Some weird little lines and twists and turns, and then his success as they get to the other side. But this picks up right after the feeding of the 5,000. It's Mark 6, 45 through 56. It's good stuff to preach. I think wealth of things there. It's not really complicated, just some strange, odd things we'll try to look at. But let's get after it.
Evil way, spit out my Lord in every way. Yet I'm still welcome in the yard
Be the type
of the king.
That's for sure. Got that one at all.
I have punched
So, Mark 6, 45 through 56. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat. He commanded them. He sternly told them to get in the boat
compelled
and go
them.
to the other side. So what's the scene here? What's going on? What has happened? What's going on?
So he went over to the other side into the Decapolis, healed the guy, the demoniac walking among the tombs, came back, healed or went with Jairus to his house,
Healed the
woman with the flow of blood on the way, raised Jairus' daughter, heard about John the Baptist. I mean, if you're going to read Luke into it anyway, that's what happened. Says, let's go away into a desolate place with his disciples because they'd had you around them, hadn't had a chance to really deal with anything. Oh, I guess they came back and told him all the stuff. He had Nazareth in there too. Anyway, so then he tries to get out on the sea, go ahead of them. The crowds follow him, get before him. They end up there in the middle of nowhere.
Send these people away. Let them buy some food.
Yep.
Jesus
You
says,
give them something.
You give them something.
Yep.
Text we dealt with last week.
Feeding of the 5,000.
You get the 5,000. So immediately at the end of that, after they've collected up their 12 baskets full of leftovers.
Yep. And some fish.
And a few fish. There's this story. So he has them go to the other side. As he says, and after they've taken leave, he goes up into the mountain to pray.
Yeah.
So if you go to the Sea of Galilee, right, there's these little low mountains. I mean, from California, we wouldn't call them mountains.
No.
They're
Hills.
right? But around the sea, definitely. And I know the traditional site for the Sermon on the Mount is one of those mountains, those kind of things, right? So you got those spots. But he goes up there to pray. And what happens?
This is my favorite verse out of this, actually. It's such a picture. And when evening came, the boat was on the sea and he was alone on the land. So they're separated, Jesus and his disciples. And verse 48 says, and he saw. I just think that's so awesome. That goes right to my heart. Jesus is looking from afar.
Yeah.
He knows when we're in trouble. And he not only sees, but then he goes and helps you out in that time of trouble. I thought, that's pretty cool. That's like God watching over us all the time. And from afar he goes. He saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. And about the fourth watch of the night he came.
Yeah. That's actually great. I mean, that's a good thing to hang your hat on if you're preaching this text. I mean, that's not a bad, what they would call a gospel handle, right?
Right.
There you go. That language, right? Of what's the thing you can kind of hang on to here? Like in the midst of this, they're separated from him physically.
Right.
He still sees them though.
He sees them. They don't see him.
Yeah. And they may feel alone. They may see themselves as alone, but he still sees them the whole time.
And he's able to effortlessly overcome what they are struggling against.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
So, yeah.
That is some good sermon fodder right there. Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be a little more facetious in the next verse.
Next section. Huh?
But anyway, yeah.
So and then it just kind of says, he sees them struggling, right, and he heads out to them.
Yeah.
And it's like the most normal thing in the world. He just walks on out
He
there.
starts walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goes out to meet them on the sea.
Yeah.
And not only that, in this text anyway, he blatantly
Is planning on passing them by.
right.
What's taking you guys so
And
long?
see, here's the thing. Yeah, exactly. So he looks out. He sees them struggling on the water. He goes, not getting into the boat. I'm just gonna take my own way.
Who needs a boat?
It's kinda like he's walking by. Good luck, guys. I'll see you over there.
Throw me a tow rope. I'll drag you.
But for them, it gets worse.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what you make with that. I do think there's, I think Luther at times will talk about how what we experience as suffering. Sometimes he'll say this is sort of like how a father plays with his child, where he makes it hard for him.
Sure.
I think that you do this with your own children, where you're like,
Yeah.
no, pick that up. I need you to bring it over here, and it's way too heavy, whatever it is, right? And and you kind of let them struggle,
Yeah.
and then at the end you kind of help them. Like there's
Good.
There's some sense
like
of
that.
that here. I think like he's fully just kind of walking by. He's not coming straight to him.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's not abandoning them, right?
Right.
He knows they're there. He knows
Yeah.
what's
Right.
going on, but
He's
but
allowing
yeah.
them to struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then as you said, it kind of gets worse. What's worse about it? What happens?
Well, if it weren't bad enough to struggle against the wind, I mean, they've been out there for a long time making no progress, and then they see something that they think is a ghost, ghost. And they cry out.
That's a good
That was a good one.
Scooby-Doo
Yeah.
impersonation there. Like that. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a ghost, and they're afraid.
Terrifying.
And
Yeah.
again, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That guy's
Well,
walking on water.
Yeah, I mean, what else are you going to see out on the ocean?
Yeah.
If you're sensing that there is a person walking on the water,
Right.
you're not going to say, "Huh, look at that strange person walking
Yeah.
on the water."
It doesn't make you think of bread.
You're gonna no, well we get to that,
Right.
but
And so
yeah.
they respond. Mark's favorite word comes up all the time. Immediately, there's no hesitation here on our Lord's part.
Right.
Yeah.
When they respond with this great fear, they're
Yeah.
terrified. It says, or they have this fear. Immediately, he speaks to them.
Right.
So in their despair, they're not even kind of allowed to linger. Right?
Yeah.
Which I think, again, going back to
Yeah.
what you were talking about, if you're kind of crafting a sermon where it's maybe highlighting this that God sees you,
Yeah.
right, and that He won't abandon you in there,
Yeah.
right, and so even the sermon itself can be, so I have a word for you right now,
Sure.
like this word of forgiveness and love,
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
like there's not a hesitation,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. And it's timely. It's immediately. He knows what we can handle. He steps in right in the nick of
Yeah.
time.
Take heart, it is I.
Do not fear.
Do not be afraid. Now that it is I in the Greek, of course, is
Ego
ego
eimi.
me, like the famous I am statements from
Yeah.
John. And so you can build a lot into that for sure. This divine image, which we've already had that in Mark earlier on when they were terrified by the storm. And Jesus kind of gets up and yells at the waves, right? And they all quiet down.
Yeah.
And they realize there, to some degree, that this is what is in the boat with them is more than just some great teacher.
It's ego eimi, right?
Yeah.
Who is this?
Who could do that?
And to some extent, you have Jesus answer that question
Yeah.
right here, right? It's
Ego
a very
eimi could do
similar
that.
situation
Yeah.
where now he's going to answer that question, even though it's a couple
But
chapters
I
later.
also like the objective nature. Do not be afraid. Take heart. Okay, anyone can say that, but here's the reason, and it's not from within you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Look outside of yourself
Yeah.
and look specifically to me.
Take heart, you've been trained for this. Take heart, you've done this all your life. No, take heart, it is I.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's not a rely on your own
Right.
wits at this point.
And what's nice about that in the context of a divine service is you got the objective sacrament for people to look to too. We got it too today, right here. You know, there's the immediacy there in the service. We go objectively to the sacrament for the forgiveness, the assurance that you need today. Yeah.
So they get in the boat, or he gets in the boat, and immediately everything calms down. Calms down again.
Well, that's right. He didn't want to struggle on the boat, so he calms everything down so they can get over the other side.
He's like, I was walking just fine.
That's right. I was walking just fine.
So they're astounded, it says, and then you get this strange verse.
Oh, gosh.
It says, they were astounded. Why?
Because they didn't understand about the loaves.
So
instead, their hearts were hardened. So we gotta. I mean, we do that.
You would say this to start with. You would say that what's going on in the water. Mark is clearly linking this to what happened with the feeding the 5,000.
Yeah, and if you go farther down on Mark, he's going to link it again. In that, and maybe it goes back to the question the disciples ask in the boat. They know the answer, but they're like unwilling to see it. They're unwilling to acknowledge it. They're unwilling to. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But they know the answer.
Who
is this?
Right.
Who is the one who can make loaves? Right.
Who is the one who say it out loud?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like there are none so blind as those who won't see.
Yeah.
Who refuse to see.
Yeah.
They don't want
there's
to see
something
it.
we said for that. I mean, right? This is it's not talking about Jesus, but Romans chapter 1, right? The eternal things of God are made clear or made manifest to them, right? They just refuse to see them. And so to some extent the disciples are in that same boat.
Literally.
And then the second half of that then is, but their hearts were hardened.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things. I think in a sermon, it's one of those things you can unpack very carefully.
Yeah.
You can also dig yourself a hole in which you're going to leave people where they're not satisfied. But I think on the base level, maybe one of the great things about it is this revelation, this gift, this knowledge, this faith. None of this is found within you.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's only the God from outside that makes soft your hard heart.
Yeah, right.
So they've been here, they've been seeing it, and any of us, like people do this all the time, like, well, if I would have been there, or they kind of, well, would have been.
Right.
No, maybe you would have, but without God's working upon your heart, it wouldn't have made any difference to you either. Right. And this is why you're the friend you pray for that doesn't have faith. Then you can't just make it happen, right? And so that this hardening in the heart, right? Because most people hear that, they'll think of Pharaoh, right?
Right.
This is a famous story. But it's because Pharaoh doesn't get credit for the releasing of the human bondage. This is all God's work.
Yeah.
He's in control. He controls the wind of the waves. He controls even their faith and their understanding, right? And so that there's something that they haven't received yet that has allowed them to receive this, right?
Well,
it's not a matter of wisdom.
And the hardened heart is always kind of that trust in the world or that trust in self, right? It's trying to figure out things on this level as well, and so their hearts are hardened. They're thinking about this in very, you might say, worldly, everyday terms, and what is happening to them is just beyond that.
Yeah.
And that's the other side of it is.
And there's some contrast there too, because we just saw how Jesus was compassionate.
Yeah.
When he fed the 5,000, and these guys couldn't wait to take a break, go on sabbatical. Let's get away from these people. So they didn't have soft hearts towards their service,
that's
like
true
Jesus did.
Yeah.
And Jesus is like, I'm going to dismiss them.
Yeah.
You guys get out of here. We don't need your poor customer service right now.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So then they get to the other side, all together in the boat, the land of Gennesaret. And what happens there? I mean, this is just kind of the summary.
Well, similar to the crowds at the feeding of the 5,000, they recognized him, they saw him, and they started going out into all the land and finding anybody who was sick, because they knew that this guy could heal them.
Yeah. He becomes the great miracle worker, the bread king, right?
Well,
and
even more than that. Well, but I think Mark by the way that he describes what they're hoping from him goes deeper than that. There's always this juxtaposition between those who should know and don't,
Right.
and those who shouldn't have any clue, have no reason to know, and yet do. So the woman with the flow of blood, right?
Sure.
Jairus, these kinds of things. And here it says that the sick were desiring even to touch the fringes of his garment.
Just like the woman with the flow.
Which takes you into Malachi chapter 4, which is a messianic text, which says the Son of Righteousness will rise upon you with healing in his, and it's really corners of garments or wings, right? It's the same
Tassels.
word in Hebrew, the tassels.
Right.
And so they know who this is among them.
Immediately,
And
they
the disciples are
recognize.
still
They're still
asking the
struggling.
question,
Yeah.
who is this?
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
in contrast to Nazareth, his hometown, Jesus was amazed at their lack of faith, and he could hardly do any miracles there.
Yeah.
But here, everybody's flooding to him,
Yeah, he's
and
doing
miracles
just
are
fine.
happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
left
Yeah.
and right.
Yeah, and so to some extent, I think the hardness of heart is also, yes, it is God's doing, but when God does it, and we just kind of reject it, right?
Yeah.
We're refusing to see it for what it actually is.
We don't want it this way
right,
or that way
right.
or whatever.
Then we don't see it. It's kind of like in Nazareth, the kingdom of God
Right.
does not manifest itself among us.
And coming up in Mark, the disciples are going to be in the same boat, not literal this time, as the Pharisees who were granted divorce because of their hardness of heart.
Yeah.
So they're in the same boat. That's not a good company.
No.
But there's the law, and there's the sting, and there's the rebuke, and something to confess now.
Yeah.
Man, good stuff there. I think I love kind of where you started, Mike, with the kind of the God who sees.
Yeah.
And I think these other themes kind of play through that even. That whatever it is they're struggling, even the hardness of your heart isn't a deterrent to Him and what He can do.
Amen.
And what
Amen.
He can come in and do. So
Yeah.
lots of good options there. Check out crafterpreaching.com. There'll be an article there that'll deal with this text as well. Leave any comments, like, subscribe, and we should be back at our usual locale next week. But God bless your preaching.